Okay, you're a CRO and you have this number that you need to achieve that feels completely unachievable, or a CEO and you need to create a massive shift. As one CEO recently said, a hard left turn with the strategic approach or operating model of your business. And perhaps those things that you need to do feel unachievable. How does that happen with performance coaching? Today, the magician is going to teach you some of his tricks, kind of. What I'm going to do is take you through the 3 ways by which I see performance coaching creates exceptional outcomes for those who engage in it. Outcomes that wouldn't be achieved if someone attempted, perhaps, to achieve them outside of the framework of performance coaching. Let's go through that. I'm going to take you through illustrating those 3 points by walking you through the process at the highest level. And I hope I'm not overly reductionist here. And again, this applies whether you're a CEO, a CRO, or a solopreneur, early stage, late stage business, whatever it is. Let's go through this. The first thing that we do is for you or your business or organization, we want to define, what does it look like? How do we know that you're successful once you've become an elite performer, when you have achieved that kind of success that you need to create? Now, you think of this, and many of us think of this in terms of outcomes. With an E, you have to spell correctly to be an elite performer. What are the outcomes? How do we know that we've gotten there? In other words, what are the things when we look in the future that we see ourselves or our business having? Market share or income or revenue, whatever that is. Now, outside of the outcomes that we have, the things that we're having, what are the actions that we see ourselves taking? In other words, what are the things that we are doing to achieve those outcomes? Before that, there's something even more important, which is, what is our way of being or our mindsets? Being, or sometimes I put here, behaving. That is leading to those actions and those outcomes. Now, I went backwards here. Everybody starts here. What are the things that we want to have? What can we do to have certain outcomes so that we can be secure, or to feel that we have a secure spot in the market and in the business, to feel that we're not stressed, that we've achieved whatever it is that we needed to achieve? And that's backwards. What we want to do is we want to say, what are the ways of being or behaving, the mindsets that we have, that then lead to the actions that we need to take so that we can achieve certain results. And why do we go in that way? Well, because nobody perceives certain things, but then chooses to do something entirely different. Our actions are tied to our perception of the scenarios and the circumstances. In other words, our mindsets, or the ways we're showing up, right? So what we want to do is we want to say, for you and your business, how do we define success in these 3 ways? And we want to look at this in 3 time horizons. I'm going to duplicate this because we're going to look at it in 3 areas. First off, what does this look like in 3 years from now? We're playing a big game. We're playing a long game. What is it that feels, I'm going to say, nearly impossible, or maybe highly improbable? If you are in, let's say, the startup game, right? To be a unicorn, a $1 billion business, or a multi-billion dollar exit or IPO, statistically is highly improbable versus the number of startups and then the numbers of businesses that have that kind of outcome. It's incredibly, incredibly difficult. So what does that look like in 3 years? Now, what do things look like in 1 year? If you look 1 year ahead from now, What is it that feels like an incredible stretch? But if you achieve it, it creates credibility and it helps you believe that this 3-year vision is not just possible, but it's credible. You have credibility that you can achieve that vision. And then lastly, if this is your 1-year vision, let's look at what is your 3-month sprint, for lack of a better term. And this is something that's going to be, it's going to be aggressive, yet achievable or doable. And when you do this over 3 months, which happens quick, so you do have to really stretch and pursue it aggressively. When you do this, you know that this incredible stretch is possible. You personally, or your organization, as you do your quarterly business review. This is step 1 of what happens in high performance coaching. And I'm going to call this is clarity. We create clarity on what it means to be a high performer. Without clarity on where you want to go, short, medium, long term, your chances of achieving it or getting an organization on board to mobilize to achieve it are much lower. And unless you break it down into steps that seem achievable and therefore create the belief that you can step towards that which seems highly improbable, you're going to have a lot of challenges. Now, this is how we approach things at the macro level. Step 2, in every session, what goes on? What is some of the magic that happens in performance coaching? Well, we say, let's take this 3-month sprint. First off, what is the next gap you have to close to achieve that 3-month sprint? What are the challenges that you see that you can't figure out yet? The challenges, the frustrations, or I'll say complaints. What do you find yourself complaining about as you pursue this? And I'll explain this in a moment, why that's important. There's a massive hidden opportunity. This, if you want to know where the magic happens, it's here. Let me keep going. After you've done that, and you've got that out of your system, this is what I have to do, and this is what I'm really struggling with. I'm complaining about this all the time to myself, my spouse, my boss, whoever it is. What are some of the options that I might choose to pursue to close that gap? Of all those options, let's design some actions, strategies, tactics that I might take out of those breadth of options to get past these challenges to close that gap. Once we've done that, it's time to make commitments to action. Great. What are we going to do? When are you going to do it by? And lastly, we create accountability in execution. This is another place that the magic happens, because this is where we bridge what we call the knowing doing gap. Plenty of high performers read plenty of books on a number of great ideas, frameworks by which you can achieve success. In fact, outside of reading books, my point of view is that many high performers already know what it is that they can and should do. They're avoiding it, they're procrastinating. Maybe they lack the courage to go about it, or they don't have to. They have a lack of accountability in doing it. But this, what we designed here, is the second piece of the puzzle. It is the process to create high performance. It's the second piece of the puzzle. There's this quote that says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, these things here, we fall to the levels of our process. This is very true. A number of people might just create clarity, but they stop there. There's a process. That which you do consistently, repeatedly, gets you slowly and slowly, but surely to these results. How many people have strategic offsites, strategic planning offsites, and they set all of these goals, and then they leave that meeting, and then, well, that's it, right? There's the process is the second piece of this. And now, I promised I would say what the hidden opportunity is in here, and why complaints are important, and where the coach comes into play here. When we're complaining about a challenge, when we're complaining about something, what we're saying is we have a way that we're seeing this scenario that is incredibly problematic. We wish it would change. And if we go back to something I'd said earlier, to an extent, is this opportunity of the opportunity here is for the coach to point out when there are different perspectives that you aren't seeing today, that you may not be taking or ignoring. You're seeing, but you're ignoring them. And when you see those different perspectives, they can lead to different actions, which lead to different outcomes. But the complaint, that's the signal that there is a way of seeing, a mindset, things in this micro instance, in whatever scenario that you have, that you're stuck on. And if you can see things in a different way, then you can act in a different way and you can achieve a different outcome. In other words, this gap that you have a difficult time, you have some challenge in closing, you close that gap by doing something differently than you're doing today, by seeing something a bit differently. And where you might need to see it comes from this piece of complaining. And the coach's job is to call that out with you and help you see that and help you close the knowing doing gap through accountability. But lastly, there is a third piece to this puzzle. Okay. All throughout every session, you go through this process. And you've got your commitments, they're tracked and accountable in some sort of system where you can see what percentage of them you achieved and haven't, and you dive into all of that. But all throughout this, you might say, well, wait, is this just, is performance coaching just goal setting up here and project management down here and really, setting goals and moving things forward? No, that's not it. There is a third piece of this where all throughout there is the opportunity for the coach to help introduce, there's the introduction of new high performance, tried and true by those who achieve the top levels, mindsets or perspectives, practices, tools, frameworks. And when you adopt them, what you're doing is you are permanently up-leveling your executive, what I call your executive performance toolkit. What we're doing here is we're looking at systematically, pragmatically getting through those things you need to achieve your 3-month sprint of being and doing and having certain things that help you believe that you can get to your 1-year goal and your 3-year goal. Great. But what you want to do is all throughout, there's an opportunity for professionals whose sole job, like it's mine, is to study and put into practice those tried and true frameworks and tools and etc. that are known to create the highest levels of performance. What we're doing is we're bringing something new, novel. We're innovating. We're helping you innovate. You're creating innovations in how you operate and think that you take with you permanently. Innovations for high performance. That you adopt and you put into practice in real time, in the moment, but you take with you long term. These are the three ways by which the performance coaching framework, in my eyes, helps create the results that you wouldn't achieve on your own, that I wouldn't achieve on my own without my own coach. Why? Well, let me ask you this, because I ask myself this. Am I, or are you, taking the time and the space and having the rigor to create clarity on what it means to achieve high levels of success, to truly achieve the ways that you want to feel and be and do, things you want to do, the outcomes that you want to have, short, medium, and long term? Are you or your executive leadership team creating the time and the space and having the rigor and the discipline to create clarity around what it is you're going after? How you know that you've achieved the highest levels of performance? 2, do you have a process? Do I have a process outside of working with my own performance coach to help me work through on a regular, consistent basis my little 3-month sprint, the challenges that I will inevitably face and that you face in your business, in sales, marketing, services, operating, whatever it is, hiring, and to look at how you might see things differently, what you might do differently, the options you might take, and then to create commitments. I will do this by this time, and to have somebody hold you accountable to it. Lastly, do you have somebody who's helping you innovate, helping bring to the table the right new concept or tool or approach at the right time to up-level how you operate, not just then and there, but permanently? You individually, your team, your organization, are you innovating personally, consistently? This is the way executive performance coaching creates outcomes that you wouldn't be able to create by yourself, that I wouldn't be able to create by myself, because the answer that I have to the question, to each of those questions, is no, I'm not really doing that on my own. No, I'm not having the process. I'm not creating the clarity. I am not innovating and finding new ways. I'm constantly reading, but they might not apply to this spot that I'm in. And so this is a piece of the magic of executive performance coaching that helps anybody achieve those things that feel impossible or nearly impossible or highly improbable in their market, in their category, in their business, in their personal lives and professional ways of operating. So I hope this is helpful to you. If you'd like to explore what a partnership to achieve elite results and to create the kinds of outcomes and actions and ways of being that you envision, and to turn them into reality for your business or yourself, give me a shout. Send me a direct message. If you like this, if this was helpful to you, thumbs up. Share it with somebody in your organization or outside of your organization that you think would benefit from this. Follow me on LinkedIn or wherever it is you're seeing this so that you get a notification the next time I post, which is almost weekly. And lastly, I do wish you the very best in everything you're doing this week and going forward and becoming the most effective executive that you can possibly be. Cheers.